It's the Wednesday Wisdom Show, and you need to know, are we destined for extinction? You know, it used to be that if somebody spoke about that question, they were generally thought of as being kind of a kook. But that question's on almost everybody's mind now when we look at what's going on in our own society. When we look at what's going on in Western countries, we can see that there is this intransigence and a disconnection between the left and the right. I mean, these are just general terms, but we're disconnected from each other. Not only are we disconnected, but we're totally crazy about our positions. We don't just disagree. We hate and we blame. All of the blame and all of the wrong is outside of us and on either a person or a group, and they are unacceptable in one way or another, or completely wrong in their approach. Simply put, if our society or our country does not have a shared ideal, it makes political discussion void as a tool. It can't possibly help us, because political discussion is about one approach or another to achieving the same ideal. And we don't have that in common. What is the thing that is actually happening? What is driving all these phenomena that we see, including the phenomena of nature, the great storms and problems with the melting of the ice caps and all of these things? What's causing this? We say man is contributing to triggering all these things. Yeah, but how? What is man doing that is causing this? We're still trying to solve these problems by trying to organize rules or overtake the other side one way or another, either by war or by political maneuvering or by underhanded means and the force of government and all of this stuff. And those things, of course, are never going to work. They're just going to make things worse. So the question comes up, what's going on? Why is it happening, particularly in Western civilization? I mean, is there something about us? Is there something about the way we're organized? Is there something about our development that has brought us to this? Does it mean that we're bad, no good, that the basis of our society is rotten in some way and has to be thrown out? We've lost something, but what have we lost? What is the actual problem? Not the symptoms, but what is the underlying thing that's going on here? Is this driving us towards extinction? Or is it driving us towards something that you could call a turning point? And do we have any hope of getting past that turning point successfully? Well, if there was ever a moment where we needed wisdom, it's now. We need to understand the basic problem that we are undergoing and address that and not the other stuff, because we're not lost unless we can't wake up to this thing that's being presented to us. This is why we're asking ourselves these questions. Our societies were built on a shared ideal, and it evolved over thousands of years. And it came from another turning point in history, in the evolution of our species. And we're experiencing something right now very much like what happened at the beginning of Western civilization. And it didn't destroy it. It gave us, back then, it gave us the basis on which we have evolved up until this point. So what was the origin of our civilization, and what did we build on? What did we build with? Well, it was a question of ideology. It was a question of a central ideal that organized society. Back, you know the story in the Bible of the Tower of Babel and this sort of conflict between the king Nimrod and Abraham, who is the founder of Western religions, so to speak. Well, was this conflict about the worship of a one God, the basis of religion? According to Kabbalah, no, it wasn't about that at all. It was really about the basis of civilization, the ideology, the ideal on which we would organize our societies. What happened at that point in time was that there was a huge explosion of egoism within people. That is, we had been developing as hunter-gatherers, and then we grew into a kind of organization of city-states and types of manufacturing and farming and trading and so on. And everything was really beautiful until something happened in which we couldn't progress any further, not materially, but spiritually. That is, according to the purpose that nature holds for us. We weren't able to align with it unless we wanted to change more than that, more than what we had. So within the species, within the human heart, there was a huge eruption of egoism. And it was manifested in exactly the same things that we're seeing now. People could no longer relate to each other. They're in the Fertile Crescent. Rather than moving together, they broke up into what we call nations. They couldn't agree with each other. They couldn't stand to be with each other. They didn't want to develop together. They wanted to expand and take in and dominate more and more land, more and more wealth. And that's what the Tower of Babel story is about, the inability of humans to relate, understand, and connect to each other. Now, this was a natural force. It happened inside individuals and amongst the whole species. If the egoistic force tells us to expand, become wealthy, build empire, subjugate peoples, and put it all together for a material benefit, then we should worship by following what nature has implanted in the ego. That was the ideology of Nimrod. And that's one way in which Western civilization advances. But there was another one that happened at the same time. And this was an ideology of connection. And that's called Abraham. And what Abraham's ideology was about, that even though this was a natural force, it wasn't there, this explosion of egoism was not there in order to just give ourselves hedonistically to this force, but that it implied a growth, and that it was possible to connect above this disconnection, to connect above the hatred. And that what nature was trying to show us was that connection is the fundamental ideal on which all society has to be built. That is, no matter what the problem is that we see before us, the solution to the problem has to align with the higher laws of nature, which are all connective, which sees all systems working together, and even love and hate, or however we want to put it, as a dynamic that serves the development of humanity, so that we don't give ourselves to this exploding egoism, but we understand it and use it correctly in order to find a higher level of connection, to build a kind of meta-connection, even over the separation. And all the laws of Western society and the ideals of Western society come from the Abrahamic ideal, which is that any law and any principle of society or government really has to come from the greater good. It has to come from our desire to connect. And that the way that we measure good and bad in a society is by what a person gives to the connection of society. That holiness, goodness, morality advances the general good through the actions and intentions of the person. And if you really think about it, you can see that it came in slowly in Western society. Mostly it was the expansion by conquering and so on. But the laws that developed inside of, say, the English tradition after all the Norman conquests and all of the wars that sort of, the Magna Carta was a kind of seed of all of that. What was really going on in there is that we were bringing in a central principle on which society can not only be built but would hold together. But today things seem very much out of control, and we can't see the societal means of reinstating, say, constitutional ideas or successful ways of inclusion. They're both right. They're both right. But the ideals on which they are being expressed are wrong. There's only one central ideal, and it doesn't depend on all of the political machinations. It's something far more powerful than all of that. And before we completely lose our way, it is absolutely urgent that we at least begin to understand that connection is what we should be doing, and that it is a much higher degree of influence than any of the physical things that we're doing. And I'm speaking to people, I suppose, who are watching this, who are seekers. And that means that you have a particular gift. That is, you've got a commitment. You understand and you feel the importance of this kind of thing. And it's urgent that people like you who feel this will start looking for opportunities to learn how to connect above hatred. Because that will actually solve everything below that. We need to be able to work with each other, and we need to learn means by which we can do this. This knowledge exists. The basis of our civilization is based on the Kabbalistic idea. It isn't wrong, it isn't bad, it's not about white people, it's not about exclusion. That's only the expansive force that's like that. But the central organizing force is the law of nature. Love your friend or love your neighbor as yourself is the law of human survival. It's not a fanciful, ethical nicety. It is actually precisely what is required at this nexus in human development. If we don't learn to have that sensation towards others, regardless of how they appear to us externally, if we don't begin to operate like the fundamental force of nature and get back to basics, the basics that built these very successful and beautiful civilizations, we're not going to be able to take it past the turning point. But it's easy to take it past the turning point if we stop being distracted by all of the nonsense that is going on the social and political level. If you'd really like to feel the superior power of this quality of connection without the ego, connection above hatred, I'm going to describe an experiment that you can do with your friends that will give you access to something you might not have thought actually existed, give you a taste of it. Pick a topic, something contentious in your family or amongst your friends or whoever you're going to do this with. Get a group of people, sit together in a circle, either around a table or just set up some chairs, and begin a discussion with each other. But the discussion can only happen according to these rules, and these rules are intended to make something apparent that is normally hidden. Okay, rule number 1, nobody is more important or less important than anybody else. Everybody is very important. Meaning, yeah, that's an external rule, but you have to aim at feeling that, and you have to act that way. Nobody's more important than anybody else. Everybody is very important. 2, nobody rejects or negates what anybody says at all. The only thing that everybody is looking to do is to connect with what was said, feel it, and collaborate, add to it. Don't negate, don't contradict. Just look, listen, feel what was said, and look to add to it. So we're looking at collaboration, but there's something more to this. Understand that the true solution is not going to come from knowledge. It won't come from something you know or something that some other individual knows, and it won't come from being articulate. It will only come from the connection between all of you. And that's what you're aiming at. The true solution that is going to be right for everyone will emerge out of the connection between you. What each person needs to be doing is to aim at that common collective experience that is not inside of any of you, but that will appear in the center of that circle. It will be because you are aimed at not coming from yourself, but at entering this mutual importance, this mutual space, this center that exists outside of the individual. That's where the wisdom for the proper solution will emerge, and also the deep sensation of something much greater than the people, and a much greater force than what you've experienced before. Once you taste it, you'll understand it, and then you'll understand why we need to seek that, and why that way of dealing with things is much more powerful than all of the problems that exist in the world right now.